this is Alex from Studio Trejo, and today we're going to review the venerable Nikon 50mm f1.2 AIS prime lens. 50mm lenses hold many advantages as they match the field of view of the human eye, while being small in body but large in aperture. And this lens opens all the way to f1.2, which begs the question, how much better is this f1.2 versus other f1.4s? Is it really as dreamy as it's described through the internet? Is this manual focus lens still viable today? Let's find out by going over the key features of this lens. The Nikon 50mm f1.2 AIS prime lens has a maximum aperture of f1.2 and stops down to f16 with click stops in between. It has 9 aperture blades creating 9-sided bokeh when stopped down and a whopping 18 pointed sun stars on bright points of light. The minimum focus distance is 0.5 meters or 1.7 feet from the focus plane. Nikon aimed for excellence when designing the optical formula of 7 elements in 6 groups that has not changed since the 1980s. With a smooth focus throw, the front element of this lens extends about 1 centimeter when focusing, but it does not rotate. Its cone-shaped design allows the large front element to sit behind a 52 diameter filter thread size, matching other AIS Nikkor primes, and it weighs 380 grams or 0.8 pounds. Next, build quality and handling. Metal construction never felt so good. AIS era Nikkors are works of art when it comes to build quality. Engraved markings, smooth focus throws, clicky aperture rings, and the solid feel in your hands screams Japanese vintage excellence. Its auto-indexing feature can still send information to Nikon DSLRs to help with metering and EXIF data. And the ever-recognizable rabbit ears are available if you want to use older Nikon film cameras. On modern mirrorless cameras, you can use a dumb adapter, or if using a Z camera, you can mount it on the FTZ adapter with no problem. There is no EXIF data when using the FTZ adapter, but the exposure is handled in the EVF. Impressive to look at and to handle. But what's the image quality like? You will notice the dreamlike state of this lens when wide open, as the glow at f1.2 combined with the thin depth of field gives it an indescribable look, unique to these ultra-fast lenses. A unique look that is sought after. Interestingly, for a 50mm lens there is distortion, but can be corrected in Lightroom with the lens profile specific for this lens. At f1.4, only the center really sharpens up, but I took the opportunity to compare it to an older Nikkor 50mm f1.4 and the Sigma 50mm 1.4 art lens considered to be very sharp with its modern glass. The differences between the AIS 1.2 and the SC 1.4 at 1.4 is noticeable. The 1.2 is brighter and has less lens glow, most likely because it's stopped down. So even though being at the same f-stop, the AIS f1.2 is rendering a better image at 1.4. Now comparing it to the Sigma Art is not a straight comparison since the FTZ adapter is necessary to engage the aperture. But now the camera will make lens corrections to the image. Well, there is no comparison since the Sigma Art is sharp all over at 1.4 with very little to no vignetting and leaning to the warmer side. The results at f2 are very interesting. The sharpness levels go through the roof on the AIS 1.2. It's like having 2 lenses, with the ultra bright dream glow wide open and the tack sharpness when stopped down. You can literally spend all day just testing how different this lens is between f1.2 and f2. It's that different. Comparing it to the SC f1.4, the AIS 1.2 has less vignetting and is sharper and feels brighter. Compared to the Sigma Art at f2, it's still not as sharp, but it's not that far off in the center, and the Sigma is better as you get to the corners. As far as purple fringing, it can be seen wide open and does not disappear until you reach f2.8. But again, in post, this defect is easily eliminated. So to wrap it up, if you want clinical sharpness on the warm side, go with the Sigma Art. And if you want vintage character, go with the AIS 1.2. Next, vignetting. With a vintage lens this fast, vignetting is not surprising. And you can see how it dominates the frame wide open at f1.2. At f1.4, vignetting lessens, but it's still very strong. Once you hit f2, which is the sharpness sweet spot, vignetting is incredibly reduced and cleans up completely at f4. Another testimony to how different this lens renders an image between these two stops. Lens flare. Lens flares are relatively controlled compared to other vintage lenses. Hazy is very controlled compared to, let's say, this older 50mm f1.4 SC. Even the Sigma Art lens shows off its flares, but it doesn't lose contrast. Bokeh. No surprise that you're going to get bokeh at f1.2. It's a beautiful vintage bokeh accentuated by the thin depth of field. It's a special look. Vintage, creamy, and dreamy. Mastering the manual focus and using the minimum focusing distance to your advantage will give you images that are just captivating. And the color rendition is on the cooler side of the spectrum. Stunning black and whites. The Nikon 50mm f1.2 AIS has been updated by the new 50mm f1.2 S autofocus lens, which surpasses it in every way. While the newer 1.2 S lens can be found for $1,900, the AIS can be had for around $350 used. But those who are looking for vintage character wouldn't be considering the perfect lens rendering of the modern S lens. No, vintage lens users are in search for something more. Perhaps a rendering that evokes the dream state, or an image that feels like a window into another time, or simply the extreme isolation of your subject for storytelling. This lens, with all of its speed and all of its flaws, gives you that, and it's a keeper for me. If you find one, absolutely check it out. If you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button below, and we will see you on the next vintage lens review.